I want to do something a little bit different today. There is a message that I would like to share. So I'm going to share a brief message with you, and I trust that on this occasion that you're really going to think carefully about the words that I share with you. It ties in a bit with what Glen was talking about, and I think I'm sharing this message with me because I need to remind myself of the importance of these few key words in our journey forward. After I've shared this message, I'm going to ask you to maybe ask me some questions, whatever questions you'd like about Map for Life, so that I can just share that with you, because you know there's questions that people would like answers to, and maybe there's going to be somebody watching the material that we've recorded that has the exact same question that you have, so that I can address it and hopefully have an answer for you. If I don't, I'll go and do some research myself and find out who that guy was that wrote Map for Life and find out what he was what on earth he was thinking, so that he can come and give you the answer next time. So let me share with you a message that was really revelational in my life when it came to me. And it was, I believe it's the answer to fulfilling the purpose for which you and I were created for. Its purpose is about bringing something that is new to meet a need that already exists. So in other words, before you or I were created, or before we create something, we first identify a need which already exists. That need then dictates the solution which the plan is based on, which guides the creation of the thing to meet the need. And so if that is how we create things, we can then start considering that if you and I are created, then we too have been created to meet a very specific need. And when you create something to meet a specific need, you create it very specifically. You make sure that it has everything necessary in order to fulfill the need, and anything that can't be placed within the thing, you make sure also exists. So if I have a cell phone device, that cell phone device is dependent on a number of factors. One is that there needs to be electricity of some kind. So an electricity supply needs to be available, or a battery needs to be available to store the electricity for that particular device, or there needs to be a solar panel of some kind to charge a device. But that's an external thing that's necessary and should be in place as well as the phone. Just like the cell phone tower has to be in place, and the software and the different things and the people, the sales places, etc. There's a host of other things that make this little cell phone possible. And I think for you and I, we need to realize that we are just this little cell phone device, and we have to play our part. But there's all of the other provision that's already in place to make sure that we can execute or play the part or the role that we've been designed to play. You don't have to be the cell phone tower, the power pack, the everything else. You just have to be the phone. Is that okay? And I think when we begin to look at life, we sometimes get a picture of this whole bigger thing and think we're going to be all those parts. No. Purpose is about completion. In other words, purpose demands relationship. Purpose is not something that functions in isolation. So for you to complete your purpose, one of the key or fundamental things is the ability to have relationship. It demands that. because purpose is about completion, not about competition. Now, we live in a world system that says it's all about competition, and we try and find our purpose, and when we start looking at things, we're actually looking at what can I win, what race can I be the best at, and we wanting to compete. No, purpose is not about that. Purpose is about completing one another. So just as I have created a tool that you are finding value in, so you have gifts and talents that I have value. Now, I mean, this morning, I've been learning, I've been encouraged, I've been inspired. I'm thinking to myself, wow, we're ready to go. We're ready to take that next step. You know, the rains need to just hold us back, but I'm already seeing that we have the ability to go to a whole bunch of different destinations right now and have somebody give a great talk. It's no longer dependent on just one individual anymore. Okay? And so we all can play a part in this bigger picture. So there's 4 statements that I'm going to share with you, which I believe are critical to purpose. And when I look at the creation of this tool, Map for Life, I can see these 4 things very evident in that process. And so in a sense, I can confirm that they've worked for what I've done, and I know that they'll work for what you've done. And in fact, we read about them at the beginning of time. And the first principle that I want to share with you, which is a 3-word principle, is the principle of creation, as I would like to call it. It's 3 words, and you can go and read about these 3 words in the story of creation. I used to see the story of creation as some fairy tale description of how things came about. Not for one moment realizing that everything that comes into existence today begins in exactly the same way. And the 3 words are the words, let there be. Your responsibility is to fill in the rest of the sentence. But the beginning is, let there be. In other words, creation begins with the spoken word. It's when you begin to speak something. So Map for Life was something that was spoken about before it ever existed. By default, we can conclude that before something is spoken, it was thought about. Before it was thought about, there was a need that existed that inspired the thought. Okay, so all of that comes before the speaking, but the speaking is what begins the process. It's the thing that starts. When you begin to declare that which you have seen, that is creation. In other words, when you speak it, it is already created. Now, we cannot see it physically, but everything that exists, you and I know, was something that was first invisible. In other words, everything that we can see today was first created in the invisible realm. And in order for that invisible thing to become a visible thing, somebody had to see it and speak about it. So your mind is designed to connect with and work with the invisible. What you are to bring into existence doesn't yet exist, except in your mind's eye. That's imagination. So imagination is what drives the thing we speak about. But generally we speak about the things we are passionate about. Have you noticed that? I mean, you get along with people and they start, there's some people that every time you get together with them, they've got one thing that they talk about. And they talk about it, that they become energetic, excited, enthusiastic. I mean, they just want to talk about this thing that they've passionate. You know, if you see something that inspired you, you want to tell people about it. So if you have a vision, something that's invisible to others that you've seen that excites you, the most natural thing to do is to talk about it. And you don't talk about it in a dreary way. You talk about it in a way that just ignites other people, that gets them excited and say, you know, I want to be part of this. You know, show me. is natural. Their natural want is to, because they have been taught that seeing is believing. But I want to say that we should change that phrase a little bit to say that you need to see and believe before it's going to manifest. Not seeing and believing. Seeing and believing is kind of a half-truth, but you've got to see the invisible. It's that seeing that's important. Okay? See the invisible, then believe in that, and that will produce these steps. So the first principle is this principle of creation, which is those three words: let there be. ... What are you going to fill in after that? Whatever you fill in after that has the potential to be a reality. Okay. The second principle, which is key to your invisible world that you've seen becoming a reality, is the principle of completion. So we have the principle of creation, let there be. The principle of completion is also three words, and those three words are simply this: it is written. ... Because you notice when that statement was made, it is written, what was written? The what was written had to be explained, okay? It had to be confessed, it had to be talked about. So you and I are in a place where we're living in a world today where people fail to take that next step. In other words, they can speak about things, and generally when they speak about things, they speak both the constructive word and the destructive word in the same sentence. So in other words, they destroy everything they've created in an instant. And then the second thing is they fail to take the next step, which is to complete what they've created by writing it down. When you write it down, it brings clarity to what you've seen. And when I say write it down, writing it down doesn't mean learning to do cursive writing or printing or typing. I'm talking about taking what you have seen, the invisible, and creating a visible image of that which you have seen, so that other people who look at it can see what the finished product is. Just like an architect would take your imagination of your dream home and convert that into a picture so that you can see it and say, you've got it spot on. That's what I see. So the written word could be a picture, it could be images, a sketch. It doesn't only have to be the writing. Okay, so Map for Life began in the same way. I pulled out that drawer, I had the idea, I spoke it out, I began to write it down. Okay, just like that. Those 5 steps, I think, were the first things I put down. Boom, 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 boom. There they were. It was done in a moment. So I had created it and completed it by doing those 2 things. But now there was a third principle that I needed to apply. And the third principle was the principle of manifestation. Manifestation is to take that which is invisible and make it visible. Okay, so when something manifests, it is seen. Other people can see and confirm that it is done. So in my example, I began to feverishly do the next step, the third step, because I had completely been sold on the need for this particular tool. 3 days after starting, I got a common cold, and I took that which I had and I put it in a drawer. And that's where it stayed for another 6 months, okay? And this is something that happens to many, many people. They have a vision, they have a dream, they become passionate about it, they start working with it, and then they get cold feet, or they lose interest, or their favorite program comes on television, or a friend invites them to the movies, or something happens in life that distracts them, and they lose the vision. So for the third principle, the principle of manifestation, to become a reality in your life, you have to constantly keep your mind on that which you've spoken. You have to be able to look at what was written, and you need to believe that what you spoke and what you wrote has been created and is complete to such an extent that you can actually manifest it. Because to manifest it, you need to step in faith. And the three words that I want to give to you here are the words, so be it. Or in another language we say amen. That which I've spoken, and that which I've written is a done deal. So therefore I can step into the future and reveal that which I've seen. Because faith is an absolute necessity to bring about something which has never been brought out before. If you want to operate in this world that we are currently find ourselves in is a world that is driven by fear. I mean, think about it for a moment. Why do you have a medical aid? Because somebody told you there's a dread disease. And if you get it, why do you have life insurance? Can anybody keep you living? Doesn't matter how much you spend on your insurance. Most people have life insurance because they have debt. And the reason they have life insurance is because some company dictated to them that they must have it so that their debt can be covered when they die. And there's many things that you and I purchase today because it is fear-driven. Fear-driven will lock you into something where you do not create. In other words, you just reproduce what has already been done by others. We want to create something new. So the third principle is the principle of manifestation. And it's those three words, so be it. And then the last one. So be it, let me just get back to the map process. Sometimes we need reminders. Don't be like the example I shared with you earlier, where you wait till you have had 6 bypasses before you actually start listening to what God has been telling you all along. When I look around this room over here, I don't see anybody that's younger than 11 or 12 rather. And I believe that God reveals things to us at a young age. If you haven't discovered your purpose or can't find it, you're looking in the wrong place. You're looking with the wrong set of eyes. Listen to your heart. You know what it is. The reason that you're not getting engaged with your purpose is because you've believed that money is necessary. And so as a result, you ask the wrong question. You always say, but how? And but how destroys the faith. But how creates doubt, and doubt is the cancer of faith. So every time you see something and you apply the world system, it says, okay, you've had the vision, you've seen the invisible, but how are you going to make it visible? I mean, after all, just look at your history. Look where you come from. Look at the kind of success that you... Did you ever come first in class? Were you ever the head prefect? There's nothing for you to show. You're not good as that person. And we disqualify ourselves. But I know that God will bring you back on track. And so if you don't listen, He's going to create circumstances in your life that's going to just push you in that direction. And when He begins to push you, you start calling out all kinds of names because you suddenly think that Satan is working against you. Meanwhile, you've just been given a gentle nudge into the right place. And that which you think is a curse, one day you look back and say that was a blessing in disguise. So there's the principle of manifestation. That manifestation process usually happens when no one else is looking. It's in the spare room, it's in the garage, it's in a place where other people look and say, wow, that person's wasting their time. That's rather insignificant. Okay? It happens there. Get used to that, because God grows things in the dirt, you know. The tree has to bury itself in the mud before it actually comes out to see what. So that's where God works with you. He works with you down there, where no one else is looking, where no one else can interfere, in a cold, dark place. There's the fourth principle, and it's a principle I would like to call it the principle of legacy. And the principle of legacy is just 3 words. And those 3 words are, it is finished. And the words, it is finished, are paradox. Because what is actually being said, the day that I took delivery of the first Map for Life book, I could state with absolute confidence, it is finished. All the work that I've been putting into, the vision that I spoke about, that which I wrote down, the work that I've done, it has finally arrived. It is finished. But what I was actually saying is that which I foresaw, that which I have been working on in the dark room where no one else saw, has actually got to the point where it can begin. So from my perspective, it is finished, but from everyone else's perspective, it has begun. You get this? So when it comes to purpose, I really believe that we are actually walking up to the start line. So when our life comes to an end, we should be able to claim at that point, it is finished. In other words, that which I was sent to do, I have now done, and it can grow. And so your and my responsibility is to actually be engaged in this environment of creation. And what more exciting place to be than to ignite the hopes and dreams in the hearts and minds of people. You know, it doesn't matter where a person comes from. I've discovered the package is irrelevant. You know, you can be somebody who can barely get off the chair, you're so large. You can be somebody who looks like they haven't eaten for a month or a lifetime. You could be tall, short, young, old. I don't know what label people could place on you. And maybe you and I have that as our stumbling block in this country in particular, because we like to label people, or we've been taught to label people. So we overlook the incredible code that lies hidden within each of us. And that is the ability to bring something into this world that is as unique as we are. And you're sitting here today. The reason you're sitting here is because your business on this place is not finished. You don't think because you went on pension last month or last year or whenever that this is now the end. No. The end is when we put you in a box. And that's not the end, that's the beginning, because at that point we should be able to say, this man, this woman, this body that now lies here, ignited and started what you and I see today, and there'd be people there celebrating your life because of what impact it's had in theirs. And so the fact that you're here with a heart that's beating today means that your business is not finished. So I want you to really go and think about these 4 statements, because I believe there's something inside of these statements that you and I need to uncover. What's interesting about the word so be it or amen and it is finished, tetelestai, there's one word for each of those. I'm just wondering whether there's one word for the other statements as well. And maybe somebody can go and do some research and see if we can find that. But the principle of creation is simply, let there be. Every word that proceeds from your mouth has the ability to bring the invisible into the visible. What visible thing do you want to see? Only speak that. Avoid speaking the things that you do not want to see. We're good at that, aren't we? The second is the principle of completion. It is written. Make sure that you accurately and clearly describe that which you have seen, the invisible thing that you have seen. Describe it in the best way known. Sometimes you might not have the words, and you might have to create the words, because that which you are bringing into existence never before existed. The third thing, the third principle, is a principle of manifestation, which requires belief so that you can step in faith. And those three words are, so be it. And finally, those words that are going to one day result in your welcome with the words, well done. You completed what I sent you to do. And those words, the well done, are dependent on whether you can say, it is finished. And I'm excited to have had these few little insights, because it's talking to me every day, and I trust that these simple 12 words are going to begin to speak to you in a way that activates and births things that have never before existed, that are going to meet the needs of the world in a way that we can only imagine. The principles of life. Let's go and apply them.